What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Muscle Media Network. If you're listening, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, leave a comment, send it to a friend. This is for the love of the game. Turner Riddle, Tommy Styles. I'm Joseph PIRCHER, and today we are joined by none other than IFBB Pro Justin Compton. Justin, what's up, man? How you doing?
Not much, man. Just now kind of finished up for the day.
Right on. Well, we appreciate you taking the time, man. I know you've had a big influence on the three of us as bodybuilders. So we appreciate you taking the time. And luckily we have Turner. He was able to get in touch with you and get this set up. And so I know Turner came ready and prepared with some topics and some questions. So I'm going to kick it over to him and we're going to let it run.
All right. Sounds good.
Since you said that, as far as like finishing up for the day, what is a normal day for you look like now compared to say 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Oh man, it's a little different. I mean, 10 years ago, all I had to do was eat, sleep, and work out. This is whenever like sponsorships actually paid, you know, like you could
Right.
get an endorsement, and it was not uncommon to have a six-figure endorsement. So back then, my life was to just be the best bodybuilder I could be. So I'd get up, I'd usually check my weight, pose a little bit, 5-10 minutes just to kind of see how if I was off season, no, I wouldn't do that shit. But if I was getting ready for a show, because I prep myself for most of my shows, but my day mostly consisted of eating, sleeping, and training, and that was it, and then if I want to do something fun, something out of the ordinary of that, then that's what I would do. But it was kind of a boring life. It was the life that I wanted and the life that I chose. So now I get up and I have anywhere between low end, I'll have around 50 clients. High end, I can go up to 150, just depending on the season. And obviously, 150 people is a lot to deal with, but I manage. So my mornings can be 2 hours or it can be 8 hours. It just depends on what I have to do that day. And then I work out myself. I'm recovering from shoulder surgery. I don't even know if you want to call it recovering because I'm supposed to be recovered according to the PT, but I still have pain. I kind of don't think they did shit when they were in there, just to be honest. Like it's still the exact same pain I had for the last 7 years. So there's that. But I just now came back from the gym, and the rest of the day is going to be chill. And then depending on what day it is, I try to spend my free time mostly out in the ocean, fishing or doing something like that.
Yeah, I remember we talked probably a year or 2 years ago. You had just bought a boat, or you were going to buy a new boat. Is that
Yeah.
your thing now?
Yeah. I've got a boat right now that I'm in the process of selling this to upgrade to buy a bigger boat. It's a constant process. Once you get hooked on it, I mean, you're gonna keep doing it.
Right, for sure. What do you
It's
like
a
to catch?
money pit. I mean, so if you don't make decent money, you can't really afford saltwater fish.
Oh, for sure. You got to have a truck to pull it. You got to all the
Yep.
that's not cheap.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that
I was
something?
lucky, man. I got rid of my diesel. I had an F-250 Power Stroke, and I realized like I really don't need this thing unless you go above like a 32-foot boat, which is a rather large recreational boat. You really don't need a diesel to pull it. Like right now,
Right.
I've got a 2023 Chevy Z71, and it does just fine.
How far are you from the water?
About 15 minutes.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and I launch at the closest inlet. So when my boat leaves the trailer, I'm in the ocean within 5 minutes.
Nice. And where are you at in Florida?
Port St. Lucie.
Okay.
It's near Stewart. It's an hour north of
Okay.
Palm Beach.
Now, when you left Kentucky, is that where you went?
No, I originally went to Jacksonville.
Okay.
Yeah, and I spent 5 years in Jacksonville, and quite frankly, the first 6 months was good. And after that, I realized Jacksonville, no offense to anybody listening, but Jacksonville's kind of a dump to me. Like I don't like it. Like I like the people that's there, but I don't like the town.
How much of an upgrade, we'll say an upgrade, just a culture shock, was it from small town Kentucky to, or maybe just, Kentucky to Jacksonville?
Um, it was it depends on where exactly you live in Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is the largest city in the United States, in the lower 48 states, in regards to landmass, not population. It's like 800 plus square miles. So it's big. So if you live downtown, yes, it's going to be a lot different. But I actually kind of lived like on the outskirts of town. I didn't live in Jacksonville. I lived in a little town called Callahan, which was about 10 minutes, 10 to maybe 15 minutes from Jacksonville.
Right.
And it was really small, low key, it had everything I needed. And that's what I liked about it. But going into Jacksonville, it is different. You know, you're going to city life. You're going from being a country boy to city life.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a shock. I mean, you know, I would say down here, the culture is probably 60% English, about 40% Hispanic. So, I mean, that's kind of different for me too. Like I would now looking back, I wish when I was in high school, I chose French as my foreign language, which I can't speak a fucking word of French. But I wish I would have chose Spanish because I could at least utilize some of that.
Yeah,
For sure. I wish I would have at least paid attention in Spanish. Spanish was one of those like you sit next to a Spanish girl so you could cheat off of them. You know what I mean? All right. Well, I'll ask. Let's see. So, what I can remember meeting you in 2014 at the Kentucky Muscle. Do you remember that? You probably don't remember that.
Was it the 2014 or 15? Because you won it in 15, right?
I won it in 14.
Oh, you won it in 14. Then yeah, I met you there. I remember.
And you
that.
and Matt were, I guess you and Matt were really tight at the time. And I was like, I told Matt, I was like, I really like to meet Justin. And I don't remember the girl you were with, but you were just fucking as full blown as possible. I don't remember if you were, I think you were you with Evagen at the time? I think you had like
at the end of 2014. Yeah, I was with Evagen.
Man, bodybuilding has changed so much from that time. There was 40, I think there was like 43 people in my light heavyweight class at that show. And now you don't have 40 bodybuilders in a show, period.
I know, man. Like when I got into it, and my first competition was 2007. And I don't think they were doing the show in 2014, but do you remember the Northern Kentucky?
Yeah.
When Beverly International used to run that show?
Yeah.
I did that show, and there was, I think it was 15, either 13 or 15. I'm pretty sure it was 15 teenage bodybuilders.
Yeah.
And that show, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't allow crossovers. And they would have like 600 head count, and that was bodybuilding, masters bodybuilding, figure, masters figure, and female bodybuilding. No other divisions back then. And we would still get 500 to 600 head count. So that's why there's 15 teenagers, and now there's usually none, zero.
Man, for that show for me was it kind of just changed it all, like perspective wise, because like I said, you had 40 in one class, and then it was a pro-am show. And I like, dude, I came from a small town in Tennessee where I just wanted to be I just wanted to be great. Like, I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me. I was backstage pumping up, and like people were looking at my legs, and I was just like, okay, man, you know, whatever. So, but that show was so fucking massive in my mind. And it's just totally different than now. I feel like that's like the Olympia, that all that went on. I mean, you had the whole like Arnold set up and all that in the background. It was just really, really like, I tell people when you win an overall, I just wish some of the people that won overalls could understand and get to feel that experience that I got to experience. It's just mind blowing to me that now, like an overall, there might be 4 guys in the whole in the overall.
Yeah, it means a lot more when you beat a lot of people. You know, there's like 400 people or 300 people in bodybuilding total or so. I mean, I'd say that show had 200, right? 200 bodybuilders.
Dude. At least.
Yeah, it was big. I mean, when I won it in 2010, I think there was like, I know there was 4 call-outs for the light heavyweight class back then. Yep. So, I mean, there was probably like 25 guys or so, I'm guessing. I don't remember exactly. Like, I remember the next show I did, there was junior nationals. There was 33 heavyweights. And now there's maybe like 8.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like I just remember when I won the novice, I knew I was going to win the open too, because there was one guy that was just standing in my way. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to beat him in the overall, but he did novice as well. So when I won the novice overall, like the feeling, it's like a euphoric feeling. It's kind of hard to describe. It almost, winning that show was my first overall win. And it was almost a better feeling than getting my pro card and winning a pro show.
Well, I can imagine too, because you're from Kentucky. But like I said, you think about there being 40 people in one class, and if each one of those guys bring 2 to 3 people. You think about that many people that's in the audience. I can remember the pose
It was
down.
packed.
There were so many people, and everyone was yelling, and the music was loud, and I was just like, it was just crazy. I can remember going from side to side on the stage, and I could hear Matt yelling, and then it was just like, holy crap, is this, like, this is what bodybuilding and being good should feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Brent used to have a hell of a show, man. That thing had like an expo. I mean, ran out of seats every year. It ran out of seats. So like, if you didn't get there like 30 minutes before the show started, you're going to be standing the whole time.
Yeah, that venue was crazy. It was crazy. The whole thing. I mean, you would stay in the hotel, walk across the street.
Yep.
Nuts. Well, okay, that'll kind of lead me to my first question. I don't remember what year this was, but the one picture of you, I think you were in the orange trunks, and you're in your house, and the bird cages in the back. Was that the one that like went viral crazy for you?
Yes. That was, let me think. It was 2014. I know that for a fact, but I'm trying to remember, since you mentioned the bird cage, which, by the way, that bird cage is still in my living room right now.
Nice.
We still got him. He's my mom and dad's bird, but we still got him in the family. Those things live to be like 50. He'll probably fucking outlive us.
Right.
But I think what happened, I was a little bit aggravated at this, but I understand from a political standpoint, they did what they needed to do. But like, I was sponsored with Muscular Development, and I really liked low key when I was competing. Like, the last thing I want to do, like, if I had like 50 messages on my phone, it was kind of create anxiety. Like, I just wanted to be left alone until after the show. So I prepped myself for that show. Nobody really knew that I was doing it. And when my name, I didn't even tell Muscular Development. That was my only sponsor. No, sorry. I was with Gear as well, the company that never actually produced products.
Yep.
There's a huge eye roll emoji. It goes in right here. I'm not even going to get into that shit. But yeah, so I wanted to just be low key. And whenever usually it's around 5 or 6 days out, they release the competitors list, and my name was on it. And I got the text message from Steve Blackman, the owner of Muscular Development. He's like, holy shit, Justin, I didn't know that you were even doing the show. And I'm like, yeah, I wanted to do the Arnold Brazil. They declined me for whatever reason. Like, I guess I wasn't good enough. And the reality is I would have won that fucking show too. But I didn't get the invitation to the Arnold Brazil. And I decided, since I'm already in prep, I'm not going to just throw the prep away. Like, Gear basically told me, they didn't use the exact words, so I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit here. They more or less said, we know the right people. We'll write the checks. We'll make sure you do the Arnold Brazil. Like, we'll make sure that you get that invitation. Just go ahead and start your prep. We'll make sure it happens. Well, it didn't happen. So I didn't want to waste my prep, and I decided to hop in Orlando. So my prep was originally supposed to be like a 13 or 14 week prep, and it turned out to be a 10 because I just stepped it up a notch. Whenever I like 6 weeks out, I was like, they're not going to give me the invitation. Like, they're not going to call me at 6 weeks out. So I did Orlando. And when Steve saw my name on the entry, he's like, hey, shoot me some pictures. I want to see how you look. And I knew I was looking good, but I did not want anybody to see that. Like, I wanted to go in and be the dark horse and just blow everyone away. So I told Steve, I was like, hey, I'm going to send you these pictures in confidence that you won't share them with anyone. I was like, I'm going to let you see what they look like. Because they were just check-in pictures, not like professional photography. Dude,
right.
15 minutes goes by. I had my phone sitting down. I look at my phone, and I'm like, holy shit, I've got over 100 text messages. Something's wrong. Somebody died. Like, something's bad wrong. And everybody's like, dude, you look fucking crazy. And I'm like, I realized the jackass went and posted them. That's why, like, I was very, like, weird about sending people my check-in pictures, because if I didn't want them posted, I guess I should say if I wanted them posted, I would do it myself.
Right.
But yeah, he posted it, and like, everybody's blowing me up, and it all at the end of the day, it became a good thing. I just didn't like it at the time. Publicity is always good. Even negative publicity is good for you. If you remember Rich Piana, whenever he would talk about that, he was like, I appreciate all my fans. He said, but more importantly, he said, I appreciate my haters too. He said, keep talking. The more you talk, the bigger you make my name. So I was like, all right, cool. I didn't get that at the time. I didn't quite understand it. But yeah, that was that picture. I think I was like 5 days out from Orlando, maybe 6 days out.
Was it the most muscular or was it the rear double?
I gave Steve both of them, and I think he posted them both.
I couldn't remember which one fucking broke the internet, but it was one of the two.
It was the back double that went nuts.
And then you brought up gear. There's a picture that you did. You're standing at like a gear booth. I don't remember where you
That was
were.
Junior Nationals. I know what you're talking about.
You got your shirt off and you're just fucking hard as granite. Most muscular. Yeah, that one. That's another. Those two right there. Really, I mean, you've got pictures all over the internet that are great, but those two are. I can remember screenshotting both of those and being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be there," you know, in however long.
Yeah, that was Junior Nationals, and I was walking around, and David Bay was there, and David literally hounded me all weekend. He's like, dude, he's like, let me see what you look like. He goes, I'm looking at your arms and your calves. He goes, you're ready to walk on stage. I was like, nah, I'm not like that. And he's like, just take your shirt off for a second. So I take my shirt off, and all of a sudden the crowd comes to me. And David's like, please just let me take a picture. And I was like, fuck it. I was like, all right, go ahead and take the picture. And then the next thing you know, that video, or sorry, not that video, but that picture went viral too. I actually didn't realize that I looked like that until he took the picture.
Dude, that's probably, like I said, that's probably one of my favorite.
I thought in my head at the time, I was like, dude, I'm too fat to be taking pictures in public. That was what was going through my head when he wanted to take a picture. I'm like, shit, I don't need to be doing this.
Are you able to look back at that now and realize how insane that is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Looking back, like, this is something I think a lot of bodybuilders, we all struggle with this. Like, I'd be willing to bet that if you could talk to Big Ramy when he was at his heaviest and ask him, do you feel big? He'd be like, no, I feel average. Maybe a little bit above average, but I don't feel big. Yeah. So for me, you know, at the time that I was actively competing and I was at my biggest, I never actually felt it. You know, like you live it every day. You look in the, like, I would look in the mirror and see an amateur bodybuilder. Yeah, that's what my eyes would show me. Do what?
I was just saying, yeah, you're chasing something 20 pounds bigger in your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're always looking to be better. I knew it, like, I could look in the mirror and tell whether or not I'm in shape or not, but when it comes to the actual size and my structure, I physically wasn't able to, like, look at myself and be like, yeah, you know, you're a pretty good bodybuilder. I'm like, you're a mediocre bodybuilder at best. Like, that's how I saw myself. And like, when people would, like, when I won that show, the Orlando Pro, people was like telling me how great I was. And I'm like, the fuck are you all looking at? Like, you're not seeing the same person I'm seeing.
Right.
Like, it was kind of a mind fuck for me because I just didn't understand it.
Or you discredit the person that's giving you the opinion. It's like,
I kind of did, because
like this guy doesn't know. Like,
that I did do that a lot, because, like, say an amateur bodybuilder comes up to me and says, holy shit, dude, you're good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good compared to the people you're competing with, but the people I'm competing with, I suck. Until I started getting, like, compliments from other top tier pros, that's when I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I'm actually okay. Like, you know, if I have, like, top guys that's talking about me, maybe I'm all right.
Who were some of your idols coming up, Justin, that you set as like a standard that might have contributed to why you never felt big enough? Because I know who my idols are coming up, and like the pinnacle of what size is so like unobtainable, like Marcus Rule, that, you know, he
was the one I was going to mention.
All right, there you go. All right.
Yeah, you know, obviously we all paid attention to Ronnie. So, you know, I would see Ronnie, and we never have, nor do I think we ever will see another Ronnie Coleman. But, you know, Ronnie and Marcus, I liked Nasser a lot as well. I think he should have won that 97 Olympia, in my opinion. But, you know, I looked at the freaks and the mass monsters and stuff. Like, even when I looked at guys like Sean Ray, who was on the smaller side of things, I was like, nah, I'm not as big as Sean, which really I was 50 pounds heavier than Sean. Yeah. But I didn't see that in my own eyes. But, you know, when you have guys like Marcus, I mean, he's another guy that, like, if he was around today, he would be the biggest guy in the circuit today, too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
I actually met him at the 2016 Olympia, and he was backstage hanging out with us. And I don't know how he managed to get back there, but he did. And he was pretty big still in 2016, like, pretty impressive.
He still looks like he's like in his 50s. He still looks pretty solid.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I'm sure that he's very recognizable as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
He's still ripping darts too, and he's still just kicking it. Doesn't make a difference.
Ripping darts, like cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never understood the smoking thing, but hey, everybody has their thing, right?
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit further about that Olympia experience? Because I think was it the only one that you did? 2016?
Yeah.
10th, right?
Yeah, I only did one Olympia. It was 2016. And to be fair about it, it was a great experience on one hand and a horrible experience on the other. And the reason why is, I did the Chicago Pro, Orlando Pro, Golden State, and I did 5 Arnold. So I had done like 8 or 9 pro shows prior. So doing those shows, after you get the first one under your belt, it was pretty, the nerves were settled, it's just another show to you. Like I was probably more nervous for, the Kentucky Muscle in 2010 than I was getting ready for the Arnold. It wasn't that big. It was just a show to me. But the Olympia was a different story because you have all the events that you have to attend. And keep in mind, I'm a guy, like I said, I like to be the dark horse. I don't say anything. I just mind my own business. Well, you can't do that at the Olympia because you have the press conference, you have the athlete meet and greet. There's like 4 or 5 events that it's mandatory to compete in. And I'm a very high stress level person. Like, I hate to say this, but I kind of wish I would have discovered weed back then when I was competing. But I was like so anti that. Like, if you even brought that up to me, like, no. But like, I needed something for my stress levels. And I remember winning the Golden State and the Arnold. And I thought, if I can replicate this at the Olympia, I'm a top 5 guy. I think I can do this. And by no means am I taking a poke. I'm not. But I remember Hani telling me, he's like, dude, you just get a little bit tighter. Well, that little bit tighter got to my head. Like it kind of bothered me a little bit. So I ended up weighing it was either 265 or 267 when I won the Golden State. I walked on stage at the Olympia at like 249, like a month later, 249, 250. And I didn't get harder. I actually got softer. Like I was like 17, 18 pounds lighter and not even in near the condition. So I was like so flat, so miserable. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that. And then I think dealing with the stress of like actually being at the show, and I think everyone, their first Olympia, based on other competitors I've talked to, that first one sucks because you don't know what to expect. You have to learn how to like really manage your time and learn how to like cope with those things. And I didn't know. So that made me struggle to fill out. Plus, I was a little afraid to eat too much because I was like, if I fuck up the Golden State, who cares, right? I got second, I got third, but you don't want to fuck up at the Olympia. So I essentially did do that because I didn't eat enough. Like I was like, oh, I'll eat 600 grams of carbs a day. When I had 20 pounds less muscle, I was eating 1,000 to 1,200. So why I chose to do that, I don't know, but that's the only time I can say coaching myself that I got in my head. I got in my head in a negative way. And I think the only thing that made the Olympia a negative experience for me is because of my look. The actual show was ran flawless. It was great. But because and I don't blame the judges. Like I placed 10th and I deserved 10th. I didn't deserve better, didn't deserve worse. That's where I was. But I know I was capable of so much more than that on that day. And I think that kind of put me in a little bit of a sour mood after the show. So like I smiled at everybody. I didn't show that I was upset, but internally I was very upset.
That's tough.
Yeah, and then I remember to make it worse, I don't know if I don't know if somebody didn't show up that day, but like I'm not used to running booths on the day of the show. Again, I'm the guy that when I go to a booth, I'm always smiling. I'm always there. I shake all the hands. I meet like sometimes I have to tell people like, hey man, I'm sorry, like you gotta go because I talk too much. Like I got a whole lot of people here, like I gotta go. But like when it comes like, your show day, the last thing you want to do is be running a booth on show day. Well, Hani asked me to do it, and I was like, well, I can't say no. The guy runs my paychecks. So doing that, standing on my feet all day, I just feel like because I wasn't used to that. Like again, my job was to eat, sleep, and work out. So standing for 10 hours a day was not my thing. I think that impacted my look a little bit, but I was so far gone at that point that there was no bringing it back.
You think he was sabotaging you so that you couldn't beat Phil?
Oh, no, he knew I wasn't in the mix to
I
be
just-
Phil.
That's funny.
I think when I speak for most of bodybuilding, at that point in time, you were pretty much the only, between you and Dallas, you were the only people that were ever thought of that could give Phil and Kai a run for their money. Like, and there was a lot of, and this is not a racist thing by any means, but like I've heard, he said it earlier, like the great white hope. Like there was hope that you would get up there and contend with those two guys. You know what I mean? I know. So like, what kind of pressure, what was the pressure like when in your mind? I mean, obviously you said that your idols and people that you were looking at were Marcus Rule and so forth and so on, but like really you had your eyes on Phil Heath and Kai Greene. Am I right?
Yes. Phil was actually an idol too, because keep in mind when I turned pro, or sorry, when I did my first show in 2007, you know, Phil was competing at the Arnold at that level. No, sorry, he did the Arnold in maybe it's 2007 or 2008. But like Phil was the talk of the town at that time. Phil Heath was the future Mr. Olympia. So like I was watching that guy when I was a teenager. But it didn't bother me. Like I guess in my head, you know, people would talk about that kind of stuff, but I just didn't see it as a reality. So I just kind of dismissed it.
No, I mean like when you're winning Arnolds and you're doing Arnolds, like at that point in time, those are the guys that you have your eyes set on. Am I right?
Well, at the Arnold, with the exception of Kai, we'll get back to him in a second. But I was not going up against Phil. I wasn't going up against Sean. I wasn't going against Dennis. You know, the first Arnold, I was not going against Kai. So that was four guys that I was like, oh shit, I don't know if I want to stand beside these people or not, because they're gonna fuck me up on stage.
Wow.
Like this is not gonna work. I did go against Dexter, and I think I held my own like against Dexter very well. The 2015 Columbus, I think Dexter won that one fair and square. Like that was clear cut. I was a little off the mark at that show. I was maybe 2, 3, 4 pounds too heavy at that show. I love and respect Branch, but I don't know how Branch beat me at that
I was
show.
gonna
I think
ask, you were
had
third,
Branch.
right?
Yeah, I got third.
Yeah.
I think I should have had Branch. The fast forward the following weekend, though, I mean, Dexter's like been one of my idols too. Like just because the shape, man. Like he's not the mass monster, but he can beat the guys because he looks so damn good. But I actually thought I had Dexter at that show because Dexter had I wouldn't say it was a visa issue. He just simply forgot to renew his visa to get into Australia. So it put him behind. And I don't remember the name of the hotel itself, but I do remember Tony always had a shuttle bus for us. And all the pros, he would say, pre-judge starts at 4:00. At 1 p.m., everybody meet downstairs in the lobby, and we're going to take you over to the venue. Well, it was like 1 or 1:30. You know, I'm rolling downstairs with just a backpack with my essentials for the show. Dexter comes rolling in the front door with 2 suitcases. Now, I'm thinking out loud in my head, he's switching hotels, right? No, he just got to Australia 3 hours before pre-judge was supposed to start. So in my head, I'm thinking, all right, I know I can't beat 100% Dexter. Like that ain't gonna happen. I said, but I'm gonna fuck you up today. I got you. And he was a little bit softer at that show. Wasn't drastic. I mean, he was off. He was like 97% maybe. So I was 100% at that show. Like that one, the Arnold Australia 2015 may have arguably been the hardest I have ever been in my life. I was incredibly dense at that show.
What'd you weigh there?
Surprisingly, I think I weighed 246 or 247.
Okay.
I was a little bit lighter because I was 252 in Columbus the week prior.
Okay.
So basically, I had a
third
meal
there
out that
too.
night. Do what?
Were you third in Australia also?
Yeah, I don't think Steve even really looked at us, man. I think he just said, "All right, just take those scorecards from last weekend and copy them over and let it go." Because everybody placed the same except Cedric, because Cedric didn't do the show. He decided not to. But literally, you're trying to tell me that out of 13 guys, none of us changed at all in a week. We all got the exact same placing a week later. So I don't think he even looked at the scorecards.
That's him covering his ass so that there isn't like oh, you placed this guy first last week and now he's third. Did you get it wrong last week? I guarantee you that's what that would be. It's almost like I see it sometimes at local shows. I'm
Yeah.
at a show over the weekend with a
Well,
client where there's a novice class and an open class, and the same two guys are in
that's
it,
that's
and
different.
they flip flop. You know, no,
That's different. Like
I-
that, I completely agree with you because I actually had it happen to one of my guys a couple of weeks ago, one of my clients, and he told me that he was not able to pump up and he didn't have oil on in his
Okay.
first class. I mean, I was like, okay, cool. But it was my second competition as a teenager I ever did. Me and this kid both were upset backstage because I got I got second place in the junior division to the guy who won the juniors also won the open overall. So he was really good. And I was a middleweight and I ended up finishing 6th in the middleweights and he got 5th in the middleweights. So he beat me in the middleweight and I beat him in the junior division. And these two divisions, these were like back-to-back classes. And I mean, I got the pictures that we both look the same in both classes.
Yeah.
Like that one was a little bit bullshit. Like you got to be consistent across the board. So unless someone literally just, again, walks on stage with no oil, no pump, no nothing,
Right.
or better yet, say you got like a master's class, and then an hour and a half later you got the open class, and say he screwed up and ate too much or decided to drink water, spill over. There's a lot of things can happen. But when you go from like 1 week to the following week, a lot can happen in that week. Like
especially flying across the world like that. Like you
yeah,
said,
that was from Kentucky. Well, I didn't leave from Kentucky. I left from Columbus. I think I had to fly from Columbus to Dallas, Texas, and then from Dallas to LA, from LA to Sydney, and then from Sydney to Melbourne in order to get to the show. So it was like a 30-hour transit for me. So, that's what I'm saying. Like when you factor that kind of stuff into shows, and I do remember telling Tony, like Tony laughed at me. Like we laugh about this today. But when I landed in Australia, I left Columbus at 250 pounds. I landed in Australia at 267. Like I was so tired, exhausted. I wanted to go, like all I wanted to do was go lay down. And the driver was like, no, I have specific instructions to take you to the gym. I'm like, I don't want to go to the fucking gym. I want to go sleep. So I go to the gym. I kind of peeled my clothes off in the bathroom and I looked at myself and I was like, I'm out. I'm not doing it. This is embarrassing how I look. And I remember Sean Roden had actually told me, and Sean always gave me sound, solid advice to bodybuilding. Sean gave me advice that probably made me financially successful to where I'm at today. But one thing Sean did kind of screw me on, it was not on purpose, is he told me to wear like really tight spandex on the plane. And I think it actually worked the opposite for me because I had like spandex pants on and they were like just cutting into my ankles because of the water retention. And I saw the scale and I was like, oh, wow. It's like I'm up 17 pounds and I ate nothing but chicken and veggies on the plane. That was it. Chicken and vegetables and water. And I called Tony and I said, hey, man, I said, you're going to hate me right now. I said, but I quit. I'm not doing the show. He's kind of freaking out. He's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, Tony, I don't know what happened. I was like, I promise I haven't broken my diet. I was like, I'm fucking like 17 pounds heavier. And he's like, oh, Justin, it's just normal water retention. He goes, hit me up in a day or so. Because I requested to get there, like, I think I was there on Tuesday or Wednesday. The show was on Saturday. I think the following day I was like 257. And then the next day I was like 250. And I just kept going down. And I kept getting better and better as well. But it was literally that much fluid retention. So anybody that does a show overseas, don't plan on getting there at 1 day out because it's not going to work out to you. Get there like 4 days out. That way your body has time to acclimate to that. But yeah, I told Tony I was going to pull out of the show and like he was not happy, but I wasn't walking on stage looking like that.
I got another question for you since you're bringing those things up. Where we are right now, say Dallas lived and you were still bodybuilding, who would have more Olympias?
I think we both would have contended for a couple for sure. I'm going to go on a limb and say myself. And the reason why I say that is I think Dallas was so fucking strong on certain movements. Eventually, like the dude was doing, he was in Lexington. This was 2015. I had just left that day, but he filmed the video with Matt later. I think he was doing, he did it like a tricep. He did full deadlifts from the floor, then went over and did reverse grip barbell rows, and then he done rack deadlifts, like all like back to back to back. It was a giant set, and I'm like, fuck, man, I'd be gassed after the deadlifts. I don't got the wind to do that. But the thing is, it wasn't the set, it was the numbers he was doing. It was like 7 or 8 plates on deadlifts. Then he's doing reverse grip barbell rows at 455 afterwards. So I feel like Dallas liked to lift heavy as fuck on everything. I feel like it was only a matter of time before something was going to pop. Like shoulder's going to pop, bicep's going to pop, something had to give. Like very few people can lift. I mean, Larry Wills is an example of that. You know, he's one of the strongest human beings that we've all ever seen, but eventually it's going to catch up to you.
I can remember us lifting, man, this would have been right around 2014, because this would have been after he won the Cal.
That was 15. I was there.
Okay, 15. So this would have been like 2016, maybe 17. We were doing shoulders, and I mean, you're one of those that's ungodly strong too, but like when you're military pressing dumbbells, to get the 150s up is a fucking job. And it's like he'd pick them up and he wouldn't sit down then kick them up. He would like kind of sit down, kick them up all at the same time. And it was just like I'm probably doing the 100s, right? And he kicks back the 150s. That's as heavy as the gym had. And it was basically like, I'm going to do these until I get tired, and then I'm just going to put them down, and then we'll just move on. But it was just like, God damn, dude, and it was smooth, it was clean, and he was just like, all right, I'm done. And if anyone knows Dallas, it's just like Dallas does something until he's tired of it, and then it's like, all right, I'm done and I'm leaving and I'm going home. You know what I mean? Like he didn't have this whole like, it wasn't like I'm going to do 4 sets here, 4 sets here, 4 sets here. He might do 10 sets, 1 set, 14 sets, and then I'm just making shit up. But it was like Dallas just does Dallas, and he doesn't care what you think or what you say.
Yeah. I don't think me and him ever actually had the chance to train together. I mean, we were in the same room, chit-chatting, talking, texting, calling, that kind of stuff, but we never actually trained together. I think shoulders would have been the shoulder press specifically would have been the only thing I could have like outpowered him on. But,
Right.
you know, speaking of that, like I remember, like you were saying, just to kick these dumbbells from here to here, it's a fucking challenge. Like when I was training at Ford's, did you ever train at Ford's in Lexington?
I have.
Yeah, Dallas trained there for a little while as well. But they had 150s, and this was when I was an amateur. I was maybe like 16, 18 weeks out from getting my pro card. And my friends was there. Just so happens, like two of my bigger friends was there that day. And I said, hey guys, just for shits and giggles, I was like, I'm warmed up. Can you all, if I just sit down, can you all hand me the 150s? So they handed me the 150s. I think I pressed them for 14, very smooth, but I physically could not get them from my knees to my shoulders. I couldn't do it. Like, I don't know if my biceps weren't strong enough or I just weren't a big enough man to do it. I don't know which one, but I couldn't pick them up. Now, that's why I specifically would like to use the Smith machine, barbell, or a hammer. The hammers, you know, if you can do 150-pound dumbbells, chances are you're maxing every hammer strength press out.
Yep. And that's just what I was going to say is like, if I would have had to pick it up and then try to hand it to him, I would have, it would have been a disservice because he would have had to grab it way down here. But the motherfucker just kind of sat down and kicked it back. And I was just like, wow, dude, like, as many people as you've coached, you see some of these guys and you're just like, it's crazy. Like I saw a kid in the gym today who he's like 3 days out. I don't think he's near lean enough, but I'm just looking at him and I'm like, I think he's natural, and not to take anything away from his coach. He's not in good enough shape as it is, but it's just like, I've not missed a fucking meal in 10 years. And this kid would destroy me. You know what I mean? Like in my prime. And there's just some people, I always say that I feel like Dallas, like his parents had to have been like bodybuilding gods. You know what I'm saying? Like to make that child, I feel like had he still lived, I know, I mean, I don't think Brandon would have gotten Olympia. I don't know if Sean would have gotten Olympia. And that's why
Sean would have. I think 2018, I think that I don't think any course of history would have changed until 2019. I think if me and Dallas were still on the circuit in 2019, it would have been me and him fighting for 1 and 2.
For sure.
That's how I would have seen it. Like I said, 2018, Sean was pretty on the money. Like that was one of the best Sean Rodens we've ever seen. And Phil was on the back end of his career. So I actually made a comment to my ex, and she's like, "How long are you going to do this?" And I said, "Until Phil Heath gets fucking old. That's how long I'm going to do it." I said, "Because I'm younger than him, I can wait his ass out."
Right. I mean, that's the way some people have done it, honestly.
That's kind of what Jay had to do with Ronnie, really, because he couldn't beat Ronnie in his prime.
Yeah,
exactly. I agree. What is the one moment in bodybuilding that goes down as your favorite as all time? Like, was it someone said, winning a show, being on a stage?
I tell you what, I'm going to think about that while we're on the show, and let's just circle back to that.
Okay.
Hey, there's a few cool moments that I had.
And then I want to circle back because a second ago you said, let's put Kai over here and then let's come back to him. What were you going to say about Kai?
Kai was a guy that, like, I honestly never thought because he's got, like, from his back shots, like, I never thought I'd ever be able to beat the guy. But when I went against him in Australia, Columbus, I was off. In 2016, I was off. And I knew I was off too. But when I went against him in Australia that year, I don't think it was a drastic difference between me and him. And I was about 245, 246 at that show as well. Had I been able to bring the 265 version of myself, I think I don't know for a fact I could have beat him, but it would have been a close fucking race between the two of us. If I could have replicated that, I think more so my aesthetics versus his mass, because he was still going to pound for pound out muscle me.
Right.
I don't think I could have beat him on the side shots. And the back shots could have been close. The front shots, I think I could have taken him on. I think I got him on the front shots just from a structural standpoint. So I think that one, like I said, if I could have brought the 265 version of myself against Kai, I think it may have been a little bit of a different story. Now, that being said, I also went against Kai while he was on the back end of his career as well, and I was in the front end of mine. So Kai in his prime probably was 2012, 2013 range. And I think he got a little bit smaller after that. Like, I don't think I faced it. Like in when he won the Arnold Columbus, that may have been his best conditioning ever, for that matter. I was really shocked backstage. Like when I saw him, I remember prejudging, the Expediters was freaking out because obviously, Kai was the guy picked to win that contest. It was me and Kai. It was supposed to be 1 and 2. Didn't quite work out that way because I was off. But I remember he's freaking out. He's like, "Where's Kai? Where's he at? Where's he at?" I'm like, he didn't fucking show up. He was not backstage. So George was coaching him. George is calling him. Like, Kai's not answering. So I'm thinking out loud. I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm going to slide my ass in here and maybe get a win anyways." That's kind of what I was thinking. Turns out the dude, like, Kai can sleep. This dude can sleep. I mean, I really feel like if he was asleep in front of me, I could, like, slap him and he wouldn't wake up. So he just fell asleep in his hotel room and almost missed the show. Like, one of the biggest shows of your career. How can you even sleep? I had so much anxiety I couldn't sleep at nighttime, let alone during the day.
Right.
But when he shows up, that's when he had started his own supplement line. And I was following him on Instagram. And at that time I had Snapchat and stuff. He was traveling the world. Like, he was in, like, not only a different country, he was in a different continent, like, every week. So in my head, I thought, he's not going to be in shape. He's focused on business. He's just doing this show strictly for business only. It's kind of like when Jay came back in 2013, 14 and did the Olympia. He knew he wasn't a contender for that show. He just knew he needed to push Cutler Nutrition. And him getting on the Olympia stage was going to do exactly that. So I thought that's what Kai was up to. And finally, when he shows up backstage, I was expecting to see an off-season version of Kai. As soon as he took his jacket off, I was like, that's fucking over. It's done. Like, we all just need to go home. Like, I knew he was winning that show at that point.
That's awesome.
Are there any other, like, standout moments to you like that? Like, seeing other guys backstage where you're just like, holy shit, this is unbelievable seeing that. Like, or anything like
Dude.
being a bodybuilding fan where it almost felt like surreal to you.
When I was at the Olympia, I got a chance to see Phil Heath up close in person while he was pumping up. That and Phil was kind of not at the end of his. I would say he was still primetime Phil Heath at that time. That is a very unique sight to see, to be able to see someone like that training, in posing trunks, is pumping up. And then the other guy that I don't know why he just stood out to me was so fucking good was William Bonnick. Like William, I think was like 8th or 9th the year before, and I thought I was going to beat William. But when I seen him, the muscle insertions that he had, just the way his tricep and rear delt come together, the way everything was just popping and firing, it was a very unique to see that. And another guy that was very impressive, like just to see him walking around, was Michael Lockett. I don't know if you remember him.
Yep.
Michael was
I
just
said the
nuts.
same
Like
thing.
he had a different type of muscle than
Yeah.
everybody else. Like it was, you've seen those like genetically modified like Belgian bulls, like the animals and the dogs. That's Michael. Like I don't get it. Like he just had like stacks of muscle.
When it
Like he
seems
wasn't the biggest guy, but like as far as like being
Right.
bubbly and round, like he really brought that.
and that's what's like, it just always seemed effortless with him. Like I know people that know him and they're like, oh yeah, I mean it's nothing for him to eat a whole pack of fucking Twizzlers in a day. And I'm like, Twizzlers? Dude, you
It's
couldn't
funny
have
you mentioned that.
Twizzlers in prep. You know what I mean?
Dude,
I
saw,
actually met him.
Oh,
Like
go
we
ahead.
met for
Go
the
ahead.
first time in person at your show at the 2014 or 15 Kentucky Muscle. He approached me, and I mean I recognized him immediately. I knew who he was. So we kind of chit chatted. He's like complimenting me, and I'm kind of doing the same thing to him because I'm looking at the guy and I said, "There's no shows left this year. Like, why are you in contest shape?" And that's actually what I asked him. I was like, "Are you dieting for no reason?" He goes, "No." I was like, "Then you don't just walk around like this all the time." He goes, "What do you mean?" He had no idea like that he was that fucking lean.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling me, he's like, "Oh yeah, I went out and I drank alcohol last night." And he goes, "I just been eating Twizzlers all day." It's funny you mentioned the Twizzlers because that was his thing.
Yep.
But yeah, he would do that. I'm just looking at how detailed and polished he is. And then I remember when him and Sergio had a little beef over the Chicago Pro like several years later. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Sergio was like the front runner going into that show. Everyone thought Sergio was going to win it. Michael wasn't even talked about because he wasn't doing the show. He decided to randomly do the show at a week out. And I think it was David Bay that was interviewing him. After he won the show, they interviewed him. They said, "Michael, you look different here, man. You look much better, but like you look different. What did you do differently?" He goes, "I didn't diet." And I'm like, I already know his metabolism. I knew who he was. Like you could see the guy was like, "What? You didn't diet?" He's like, "Yeah, man." He goes, "I realized I don't need to diet for shows." He said, "All I did," he said, "I pulled my water back by 50%. I think he said 50% on Friday." He's like, "I pulled my water back." He goes, "I just showed up." And it was just like that. He didn't diet. He just trained and won a pro show. But yeah, he was that guy that I don't care if it's 365 days of the year, Michael will be leaner than outside of your top 5 Olympians. He's going to be leaner than all of them. Don't care what day. And he may be bigger or smaller depending on what phase of his life he's in.
Yeah.
But from a body fat standpoint, I don't think you can make the guy fat.
Man, that's wild that you brought him up out of everybody that you've seen. Because I've told a story on this show where in 2019 I saw him at FIBO. He was walking around with a sleeveless hoodie, and he had a container that had like bodybuilding food in it, a pack of Twizzlers, and a fully loaded Coke. And this dude, I was working at the animal booth, and this dude walked past, and everybody was there. I met Cedric. Rolly came to the booth. I'm there with Evan. I'm there with Derek Lunsford, all these guys. And that dude walked past, and I don't know if it was the combination of seeing that he's eating this shit. Like I was so neurotic at the time. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But like you said, it was almost like his shoulders were sitting on other shoulders.
Yeah.
And not a huge guy, like structurally, like not somebody that even you might look at twice, like height wise, but dude, he walked past and I just felt like I was looking at something different, to put it simply. I was looking at something different. So Man, crazy
Speaking
stuff.
of Rolly, you know, I did my pro debut with Rolly, and seeing him backstage was also someone else that, like, when he was standing there relaxed, I mean, Rolly's known for his triceps, but I remember looking at his forearm and it just looked like a fucking turkey leg on his forearm. Like, it was insane looking. Him and Phil Heath had like that where it's like
Yeah.
comes out like right here, like in the
Yeah.
forearm, it's like just hangs off of like that bone. And I remember seeing him and I was like, well, from the front, I was like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. But from the back, I didn't see his backside until he came on stage because someone told me he was 20 pounds heavier in 2013 than he was in 2012. And I said, well, if he's 20 pounds heavier, I was like, I'm going to beat it because he didn't gain 20 pounds of muscle. Right. Well, he did. He fucking did. So,
man.
Was your pro debut Chicago in 2013?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you turned pro at Nationals in 2012, right?
Yeah.
Is there any particular reason you picked Chicago that particular year following?
Not well. Yes and no. I really didn't fly a lot, so to say, at that time in my life. I had been on an airplane one time when I was 19 years old. And then after that, my next time on an airplane was for the Olympia in 2013. So I wasn't comfortable. Like, I wasn't afraid of flying. Clearly, I don't have a problem with that. But I was afraid of flying and competing. I wasn't ready for that yet. So I wanted to pick a show, and not to mention money was not really my best friend at that time. Like, I didn't really see a lot of money at that time. So the last thing I wanted to do was have to fly, because I heard when you fly, you hold water. Well, I found that out the hard way. But I was like, I don't want to spend the extra money on the hotels, the airplanes. So I chose a show that was within driving distance. And I think that was going to be the closest one for me. And not to mention the timeline worked out really well because it gave me time to clean my system out after Nationals, which was, I think, October, November. And then that show was in July. So it gave me time to let my body have a break and still push the gas and get ready for that.
And then you took like a whole year off to your next show, right?
Almost. It was around 9 months as well because the Orlando was in April.
Okay. Was that one of your best phases of size that you put on from 13 to 14?
Probably, yes.
Okay. I remember following you pretty closely then. You just kind of blew up. So I believe you were up to like 290 at one point.
At my heaviest, I actually tipped 300. Okay. But it was like 299 and change. It wasn't quite 300, but I rounded it up. I was like, I'm saying 300. But I think that particular year I got up to like 285, 288. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, when you speak of a break through your years of competing, what did that look like?
What do you define break? Do you mean like time off stage or time off gear or what?
Well, I'm asking you, like when you said I took October, November, what did that look like? Was it no gym? Was it just no gear? Did you bring your food down? What stayed the same and what changed? When you were giving yourself time to take a break, clean out, that way you could hit another phase full charge when that time comes. What did a break look like for you?
So I only did this particular style one time. Like, usually for me, I like to go right after the show and get back to work. Like 2 days later, I'm back to work and I'll run about a 6-week rebound, as in like rebound cycle. I'll change things up for about 6 weeks. And then after that, I shut it completely down. I'll shut it down for 10, 12, maybe even 16 weeks. And now I was one of the unfortunate guys. I wasn't able to actually do a post cycle and get my natural blood test levels back. After like 2 cycles, man, like when I was like 21 years old, 22 years old, my test was done. Like, my body was not recovering. I think my levels was like 250 or something. So I knew at that, like, you know, at that young of an age, if I go to a doctor and ask for TRT, they're going to tell me to get fucked and leave. Like, they're not going to help me out. So I started just self-medicating basically with TRT. I would drop it down to 200 milligrams, and I would do that for like, you know, probably about 4 months and then go from there. But after Nationals, I did not do any rebound phase at all because I was trying to focus a little bit more on business side of things I'll get to that here in a second. Me and my ex had decided to book a cruise. So we drove from Atlanta, because that was like the only year that Nationals was held in Atlanta. We drove from Atlanta to Cape Canaveral on Sunday after the show, and then Monday morning we got on a cruise. And I ate my ass off on that cruise, and I enjoyed it, but I also had to limit myself because I was blatantly lied to by a few people I'm about to tell you about here in a second. I was trying to like be conservative. So like I didn't take anything with me on the cruise. It's not like I'm working out on the cruise. I did cardio on the boat. I'll have to tell you why on that in a second as well. But I think I took about 8 to 10 weeks completely off. I trained, but I didn't do anything else. Like I kept my diet good and strict, but that's literally it. But I remember I weighed in at 224 at Nationals, and I came back from my cruise at 228. So I did pretty solid. I mean, granted, metabolism played a big role into that, and the fact that like when I was on the cruise, I was constantly active. I wasn't that guy that was on the upper deck laying by the pool drinking margaritas all day. That wasn't me. But I remember at Nationals, prejudge was on Friday and finals was on Saturday. And after prejudge, I was working with Thackeray at that show, and Thackeray like comes up and hugs me, almost picks me up off the ground after prejudge, and I'm like, "What the fuck was that for?" He goes, "Dude, we did it." He's like, "You're gonna win." He's like, "You're gonna win the overall too." And I'm like, "Shit, I'm just happy to be in the first call out." Like I went from 13th place the previous year, so I didn't think I was winning because they literally was moving us back and forth the whole time. In fact, guaranteed me, he's like, "Dude, you are going to win the heavyweight class." He goes, "And you're going to win the overall too." So about 2 hours later, Steve Bleckman called me. And Steve told me, he's like, he asked me if I knew about the Young Gun section of the magazine. And I think this may be the first time I've ever told this story publicly. So he asked me if I knew about the Young Gun section magazine. I said, "Yeah, of course. I used to get the magazine. I don't think I'd pick them up in the store." But anyways, he said, "Well, how would you want to be signed with MD?" And I was like, "Well, that would be a blessing." I was like, "It'd be an honor." I was like, "So let's talk." And I already knew that the guys got paid to be a part of the magazine, but I wasn't pushing my luck. And he said, "Cool." He's like, "So what I'd like to do," he said, "I'd like to fly you out to California on Sunday." He's like, "I'll pay for your flights, hotels, I'll pay for everything. And you're going to do a shoot with Paramount." And he said, "Then we'll get you a contract set up." And I was like, "Yeah, there's one catch to that, Steve." I was like, "I have a cruise booked next week." And he said, "Well, can you cancel it?" I was like, "No, not fucking canceling my cruise." Like, I feel like when I prep, I can be a little bit of an asshole to like whoever's around me. Like I'm not the last 4 weeks, I'm not the friendliest guy. So I purposely booked that cruise for me and my ex. I wanted us to have a good time. It was like I wanted her to like it was like a thank you, so to say, for me. So like we got this cruise booked, and I'm not canceling that cruise. And I actually made him a suggestion. I said, "Hey, she's going to want to kick my ass for this." I said, "But if you can reimburse us for the cruise, I'll do the photo shoot. She's going to bitch at me for the next 8 weeks, next 12 weeks. I said, "But I'll rebook our cruise if you'll reimburse me." And he said, "No." I was like, "So let me, like, I didn't say this part to it, but I was like, let me get this straight here. You want me to cancel a cruise that we spent over $4,000 on to come out to do a photo shoot for you that you haven't even given me a contract for yet? You don't even have to. Like, I'm taking your word for it. There's nothing in writing. So you want me to cancel my shit? Like, I'm making pennies right now. Like, I'm not making any money. You want me to cancel my cruise, cancel my vacation, to come shoot for you so you can take those images and make money off of it, and you're going to leave me hanging high and dry?" So I said, "No, can't do it. I'm not going to do that." So he said, "Okay, well, oh, yeah, there's one other thing." Before we got to that, he congratulated me on winning Nationals before I'd won anything. And I said, "Well, I appreciate that." I said, "But I haven't won yet." He goes, "Are you kidding?" He goes, "You're going to beat everybody here." And I can only think and speculate that this was a political move as to what happened. So fast forward about 2 hours after that phone call, I get a phone call from Robin Chang. And you know who Robin is, right? Robin made me the same proposal, except his was slightly different. And Robin basically said he wanted to sign me with Flex Magazine with a dual contract, get me a magazine and a supplement sponsor at the same time. And I'm like, shit, this is great. He wanted to shoot me on Sunday, he wanted to fly me. I think he wanted to fly me to New York. I don't remember. And I said, look, I'm not doing it. I was like, unless you're going to give me $4,000 right now to pay for this cruise, I'm not doing it. So he said no, and we parted ways. Well, I didn't win the overall. And I like Brian, by the way. Brian Yersky won the overall. So this is no poke towards Brian, not even close, but I think I should have beaten him. The whole crowd, the whole fucking internet thought I should have won that show. And I didn't. So I was just thinking, from a monetary and a business standpoint, they needed him to win because they're not going to let some little country bumpkin from Kentucky take the overall at nationals and not have one single picture of him. None. They had nothing to advertise. So in other words, they couldn't make money off of me. They had no way of marketing me. But Brian had been a sponsored athlete for several years. And guess what? Brian made the cover of both Muscular Development and Flex Magazine the next month after that. So really, I think that was just a political bullshit move that they pulled on that, because it's not like I blew Brian out of the water. Like, I didn't just dominate him. Like, it wasn't one of those situations where it was me and then everybody else. No, I mean, he was right there with me. And I think that was just the motivation for them to choose him. I may be wrong on that, but that's just my opinion as to what I think happened. But Robin, as you know, Saigo, right? You knew him. So This is where me and Jeff became friends and also lost our friendship in the same weekend and then regained it later. I had booked a photo shoot with Jeff probably 12 weeks out because I wanted to get some of my own images. And at finals, Robin comes up to me, congratulates me on winning my pro card. And he said, hey, he goes, change your plans. He said, you're open tomorrow morning, right? I said, yeah, as long as I'm on the road by 3 p.m., I'm good. He goes, okay, cool. I said, change your plans. He said, I have a photographer here in Atlanta who can shoot you tomorrow morning. He said, let's do this. I said, cool, great. And he goes, you're not shooting with anybody else, are you? And I said, well, yeah, I got to get up at 8 a.m. to shoot with Saigo. He goes, who? Now, that's funny that he said who. I'll bring that up here in a second as well. But he said, who? And I said, Jeff Saigo. And he goes, not anymore, you're not. I said, what do you mean not anymore? And he said, well, if you want this contract with Flex, he goes, you're going to cancel that photo shoot. He said, because we need exclusive content. He said, the fact that you've never done a photo shoot before, we need you to shoot with us and only us. He said, we're the only ones that can have images of you right now. I said, fuck, I was like, I don't know how to handle this because Jeff was always so nice to me. Like, he was always staying in contact with me. I was like, how am I going to tell this guy that I got to cancel the photo shoot? Because keep in mind, for him, it was a big deal for him too, because he was going to shoot the guy, the most popular guy for nationals. So it was a big deal. I was like, how am I going to do this? So here, this whole time I'm running this guilt trip in my head, like, fuck, man, like, he seems like a really honest guy. So I called him and I said, hey, you're not going to like me right now. I said, but I have to cancel. And I explained the story to him as well. I said, this is a business move. I said, I will work with you in the offseason. I said, we'll do it under the table if we have to. I said, but this is a business move right now. I said, Jeff, I've got 2 contracts. I was supposed to sign with Flex and University. Like, I'm going to be making $5,000 or $6,000 a month extra. Like, I can't say no to that, right? Turns out Robin was so stupid. And yeah, I hope he hears this too. This guy was so fucking stupid that he was the chief editor of Flex Magazine, and Saigo worked for Flex Magazine. He was too stupid to know that Saigo was one of his own employees, and Saigo could have done that photo shoot. So I canceled with Jeff at like 11 p.m. And Jeff was upset. He didn't like it. He was upset. Robin calls me at midnight and says, hey, man, sorry, that guy's overbooked. We can't shoot you tomorrow. I'm like, fucking really? Like, you make me cancel my photo shoot, and then you cancel on me too? So at that point, I'd shake hands with Robin, but I did not respect Robin Chad anymore after that. And I don't respect him to this day either because of that. Like, you just blatantly lied to me right to my face. Like, kind of shafted me a little bit. So me and Jeff ended up making up, and we did multiple photo shoots after that. But I just thought it was screwed up that Robin didn't even know his own people. Like, I understand their main guy. I think their main guy was Gregory James at the time. But the thing is, Jeff could have done the shoot, and Jeff could have gotten great images, and we could have rolled right on past it. But Robin was literally so much of a space cadet, he didn't even know who his own photographers was.
So did you shoot it all after the show?
I didn't get to shoot. I shot with JM, like the mandatory shoot that you have to do with JM. I shot with him. I got some pretty cool shots from that somewhere because there was like random bystanders, like because JM did it in the middle of the street, basically. It was not like a structured or organized photo shoot at all. Like we're like downtown by a stop sign. Like I'm not kidding. So I had like random bystanders walking by, like taking pictures with me, which was kind of cool and shit. But yeah, that was the only photo shoot I got because of that. It was a little disappointing, to be honest, because, you know, you want, like, at the time, it didn't bother me. But looking back on it now, all that hard work, you know, I wanted to have the images to back that up, you know, as a memory.
Yeah. I can remember the pictures that I guess you or your girlfriend posted from the cruise.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember all that. I asked a couple people questions that they would have for you, and Cade Zook, you know who that is?
Yeah, no, Cade. I remember Cade. Cade's wife, random backstory, like he was the Arnold 15. His wife was a hairdresser, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, his wife like cut my hair and did some shit for me.
I remember that. He wanted me to ask you, like, when you were in the thick of things, to kind of go into detail of how meticulous you were about all the things, whether it be timing, ounces, grams, all that. What just explain what was normal in your life, but everyone else would think's crazy.
I remember this is a funny story on this. Joe Bentley always told the story. You remember Joe?
Yep.
So me and Joe were together in I think it was 2015 or 2016, and we were doing the store appearance, and we were in South Carolina. You know a guy named Noah Steers Nutrition?
Mm-mm.
Noah's the biggest human being I've ever met in my life. Noah's like 6'8", like 330, 340 pounds with abs, like incredibly large human being. But he owns a supplement store there, and me and Joe was there, and I always got my meals like at a meal prep company. And I understand, like, they're not going to cater this much to one guy. So I would always take my meal and I would dump it out on the scale to make sure things was right. And I remember it was like 8.2 ounces. And I was like, fucking bullshit. It's like 8.2. And I take 0.2 ounces off my meal. And Joe thought I was nuts. Joe was like, dude, it's 0.2 ounces. I'm like, yeah, it's 0.2 ounces I don't need and I don't want it. And like, if I was going to do like 100 grams of cream of rice, it was not 99 or not 101. It was 100 grams. And when I was done, I remember my ex, I used to piss her off every morning when I was eating breakfast because I'm sitting there with the bowl and I'm scraping this fucking bowl clean. She could hear like the spoon and the bowl like dinging together for like 5 minutes. Like I wanted to make sure that I got every ounce, every gram of what was supposed to be in me, it went in me. Like if it wasn't on my diet, I wasn't doing it. Like I was so meticulous at times. And I'm not this was overkill. I'm going to publicly say this on camera too. Like, say I ate at 5 o'clock and my next meal is going to come at 7:30. And if my ex at 7 o'clock, she's feeling a little frisky, I'd say no. I'd be like, I got to eat in 30 minutes. Like, we're not doing this. I'd turn her down. Now, that's a dickhead thing to do. Like, me being 10 minutes late on the meal to be able to smash is not going to be, it's not going to fuck up my bodybuilding career. But I was so meticulous on that, like, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, you can wait till after I eat.
I was just going to say, you weren't going to last that long anyway, so you wouldn't be too late on the meal.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
I'm fucking with you. Were you a type of guy that like woke up at the same time, ate at the same time, trained at the same time, same amount of meals pre, post, every day?
I didn't have to structure it that way, but yes, it just kind of came natural for me. I was usually up. I've had a sleeping issue since I was about 20 years old. Like I don't sleep very well. So I think I actually had an alarm set. Like if I wasn't up by 8 a.m., I had the alarm set, but I was always up like 7:30 every day. So I was pretty structured with that. Like I would have the meals usually at the same time every day. And I tried to train either after meal 2 or after meal 3. That just worked better because that's when I feel like my energy, my mental clarity was at its highest. And since I didn't have a job to worry about, I'm going to train when my performance is going to be at its peak. You know, some guys do really good when they have 5 or 6 meals in them, but I don't. Like that's when I'm sluggish having that much food in. And I don't want to train after meal one because I don't feel like I have enough calories in me to sustain the workout that I'm about to put myself through. So I tried to train, like if I ate at say 9 and then ate again at say 11:30, I'd want to train about 1 o'clock. And as you know, 1 o'clock is the deadest hour in the gym. That's the best hour to train because you have all the equipment to yourself. You got nobody to talk to, nobody to bug you. And that's why I structured it that way.
Did you ever do 2-a-days?
I did. Yeah, I did. There was towards the end of my career, 2-a-days is something like I'm a volume guy.
Yeah.
And doing 2-a-days with volume can catch up to your central nervous system really, really fast. I was able to handle it for 4 to 6 weeks. And after about 4 to 6 weeks, my body was just saying, fuck you, I'm not doing this anymore. So I would wake up, and this is the 2-a-days was kind of a catch-22. I would do the first session after my first meal, but I would specifically do, like, let's say I'm training arms and shoulders that day. I would do arms after meal one, and then I would come home, have the post-workout, have a couple more meals, and I would go back and do my second one. That's when I would do my harder workout because I know I have more food in my system. I would weigh it out. Like whichever one is going to be the most taxing on me, I would do second in that day.
Makes sense.
And then doing that though, saving that bigger session, were there ever times like deeper into that, 4 to 6 week phase where it was more like mentally daunting to go back for that second session because you've already gone? Because I experimented with this a little bit. I needed to bring my arms up badly, and I do push-pull legs, so I would start splitting it. And I tried it both ways. And for me, I liked mostly doing the main, like I would do my back workout after meal one and go do arms after. And I found sometimes if I flipped it and like my fatigue was high, man, going back to do a full on back workout at, 4 o'clock or whatever it was after you were already in there, it was rough on me. Were you doing that all through contest preps as well? Or was that just
No, I never did it in prep. I always did it because I wasn't fortunate enough to get away with zero cardio in prep. I wasn't that blessed. I wasn't Michael Lockett to eat my Twizzlers and be in shape.
No
but
cardio.
When I won the Golden State, when I was like 265, I only prepped for 5 weeks and I never went past 25 minutes of cardio. But that 25 minutes of cardio to me felt like 2 hours. I absolutely hate cardio. I would rather get in a ring with Mike Tyson and let him use me as a punching bag as to do fucking cardio. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's the most boringest thing ever to me. I'll walk outside. Outdoor cardio is great. But going to the gym to sit there and repetitively, it's just watching paint dry. Yeah. Like, I hated it. So that's what actually gave me the idea to do 2-a-days, and I would do it post-show. Because I never wanted to just like cold turkey stop cardio because I was worried that my body fat would rebound, which it probably would not have, but it was more of a mental thing for me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to train twice a day and I'm going to benefit from this too. And I did. It worked out good for me, but again, it only worked out for like 4 to 6 weeks. And after that, I had to drop it to once. And usually I would take a full week off of training as well because my body would just be banged up, like joints would be a little achy, a little sore. Tendonitis would kind of start catching up some.
Yeah. That's good insight.
Hey, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go, Turner. You go. Yeah, go. You go.
Okay. A second ago, you said you were going to speak on business. You said at one point you were focusing on business. What did that look like?
It's something after nationals. I was just trying to get the contracts and stuff lined up. And I remember when I talked to Steve Blackman, I ended up signing with MD. I never did anything with Flex, but I signed with MD. And I remember telling Steve, I said, hey, if you don't want to do this, I said, my girlfriend's going to be pissed. I said, but hear me out. I said, I have a good metabolism. I have a good work ethic and I have good control. I said, what if in 2 or 3 weeks from now, if I'm still in the exact same conditioning, can we shoot then? And he goes, oh, no, I like it to be right after the show when you're stage ready. I said, Steve, I can be stage ready right afterwards. I said, I'm not going to gain a lot of weight. I said, I'll even weigh myself on the damn boat to make sure. Like, I want this bad. Like, I really want to be a part of the team. I really want it, and I will do what I have to do to make that work. So I actually did about 45 minutes of cardio a day on the boat. And I wasn't doing that much in prep, I don't think. But I wanted to make sure that I was, like, ready to go. And I got back in, I hit him up, and I said, hey, what do you think? And he goes, well, I need you in contest shape. So I said, hey, check your phone. I sent him the pictures. I was 228. I was like, I'm only 4 pounds off of what I weighed in at. I was like, give me another week. Give me 3 or 4 days. Slap some tan on me. We're good to go. And he didn't want to do it. I don't know if he thought I sent him old pictures or what, because it's not normal for a guy to be only 4 pounds up, especially after he just came back from a week vacation.
Right.
But I looked the part, but he didn't want to do it. So we ended up we signed together like 6 to 8 months later. And I remember he signed me on a very low contract. Like, it was embarrassing how little he paid me. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say, but it wasn't 4 figures a month. I'll tell you that. It was less than $1,000. So when I found out what the other guys was making, when it came time to renew that contract, I hit him up for quite a bit more, and he accepted it, which then I realized, well, shit, I could have gotten more than that too. But yeah, like I ended up working with them for 2 years, but that's when social media took over and there was no such thing as exclusive content anymore.
Now, from that point to where we are now, have you not had a job outside of bodybuilding since?
No. For a little while, I was doing day trading, but like, I haven't worked for someone else. Like, I was day trading and I got rather good at it, but I'm not good at taking risks. Like, I have never gambled at a casino in my entire life. I don't like the idea of it. I'll play the lottery. I'll put like $5 or $10 on the lottery, but that's it. So when you're day trading, I think that year in 2018, I think I made like 45,000 was my profit total, which is not bad, but day trading is a full-time position. Now, if you're willing to wager, like, I would want to buy a stock, like I would do like $2,000. And if I could, make $300 that day on that one, that's what I would do. So, I'll take my $300 and I'll run. Now, if you think about it, if you're buying stocks at 50,000, 100,000, if you're putting that kind of cash on it, and you can take 100,000 and make 10%, you make $10,000 in one day. But there's days that you don't make money, you lose money. So I'm not willing to put, 5 figures or 6 figures on a stock that's potentially going to put me back $8, $10, $15,000 just in a matter of seconds. Because when you're day trading, you look at 9:30 when that market opens. Sometimes those stocks will jump 10, 15%. Sometimes they drop 10 to 15%. So I just wasn't really willing to risk something like that. And at the time I was considering it. But my coaching business, like, I just kept having more and more and more people come to me. I'm like, maybe this is my calling. Like, I'm good at it, and people are wanting the service. I'm like, let's move full time into this for right now. But no, I actually have not had a job where I have to report to work in a little over a decade.
Did that help you transition out of bodybuilding?
What, being able to coach?
Yeah.
No, not necessarily, because quite frankly, 2017. I wish that year didn't even exist for me. It was a horrible year. Like, there was a few good positives that came out of it, but not many. In 2018 is when my coaching business was blowing up. And I think I got back up to 275, 277. And I did that really quick too. My body responded very well. I remember reaching out to a couple of companies and I said, hey guys, everybody thinks that I'm like deadly ill and they think that I'm fucking dying and I'm over. I said, think about this. We can film this shit and this will be the comeback. I said, this is going to get crazy amount of views. I said, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be better than ever. It's like, we both can monetize off this. What do you guys think? Oh yeah, we'll give you $2,000 a month. And I'm like, fuck off. Like, I'm not going to do this shit for $2,000 a month. Like, considering what I was making previously, $2,000 a month, like, I'm not even going to pick up the phone call for that. Because do what?
Go ahead.
I was making significantly more than $2,000 a month off my endorsements. So I'm just thinking out loud, like back then, my name was already hot. People already knew what to expect. I was like, this was going to be something totally different. You know, people, I mean, it was a comeback because I got as low as 215 pounds. And that's light for me. So the fact that I went from 215 blowing back up to like 280, competing at like 245 to 265, I don't think I would have been quite 265 that year, but it would have came by the end of 2018, maybe 2019. I would have had that size back in full. I was like, this would have been the perfect comeback story. But like the fact that I'm funding pretty much everything and I'm doing it and you guys are just milking and monetizing, it was a huge turnoff to me. And my business is blowing up. And then I also kind of got into outside things outside of bodybuilding. You know, I started traveling a lot. I'm still kind of an avid traveler. I love to do things. I love to get out. Like to me, I like to make a lot of money, but I'm also the guy that spends a lot of money too. Like I like to enjoy my life because we don't never know. I mean, I hate to say it here, but like Dallas is a good example. We never know when something could just happen, you know? So like if I die today, I've lived a great life and I'm cool with it. Like if I died right now, I'm okay of saying I lived a good life, 35 years. I don't want to be that guy. Like I'd rather die at 35 and have a good life is to live to be 90 and live a miserable life. So like I put aside X amount of money every month. There's almost like a retirement plan. But like you know, I tell you, I offshore fish, dude, you can't go out in the ocean for less than $300-$400. That's on your own boat that you got a 6-figure boat. Like I've got a 6-figure boat sitting in my driveway. Right. So, you know, I do what I want to do now. And I started just enjoying like other things outside of bodybuilding. And I realized it's actually kind of hard, at least for me, it was really hard for me to be able to juggle all these other things and still be a top tier bodybuilder. I was like, you know, I'm having so much fun. I've already placed top 10 at the Olympia. I've won an Arnold Classic. I've had my pro card for a while. I was like, the only thing I haven't really accomplished was winning the Olympia itself. That I feel like that was the only goal that I had left in bodybuilding. So I kind of just scratched it off at that point. Like, don't get me wrong. There's days I still wake up and I'm like, eggs and oats, go to the gym. We're going to fucking make a comeback. And then I'm like, shit, you're not going to do this, Justin. You've been saying that shit for 5 years.
Yeah, I get it, man. 100%.
Hey, man, let me ask you, did you struggle with your identity at all leaving bodybuilding?
Oh, you have no idea, man. This is something else that I don't think I've ever really publicly talked about as well. Like, I can't speak for any of these other guys. I don't know what they've had to go through and had to deal with, but 2017 and 2018, I actually, and I'm very good at hiding things like my feelings. Like I may be smiling, but that don't mean I'm smiling internally. And it's mostly because I'm not the guy who wants sympathy. Like sympathy and pity does not exist in my vocabulary. I don't want it. Like if I get my arm bitten off by a shark, I'm going out offshore fishing tomorrow. If I lose an arm to a shark, I don't want anybody to tell me that they're sorry for me. Nope. But it's, you know, my choice. I did it. So I did struggle a lot, man. Like depression was there. Like my mood swings. Like I wasn't bipolar in the sense of like what real bipolar is. Like I was triggered very easily. You know, like when people would approach me like, hey man, like what's going on, dude? You're losing a lot of weight. And I'm like, fuck off. You know, like I don't want to hear this bullshit. You know, like it really did eat at me internally. Like I was never like suicidal or anything like that. But there was days that I was like, fuck it, man. I don't even want to get out of bed today. And finally I just had to accept because everyone knew me as like the freak, you know, this freaky guy. And now that you're not that, it's almost like you said, you lose your identity. And it bothered me. Like I kind of felt like I was a head basket. Like I didn't know if I wanted to shake your hand or I wanted to punch you in the face. Yeah. Like, and not gonna lie, there was a couple of fist fights that happened in the middle of that too. Like, cause I would lose my temper at over little shit.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to control myself.
Man, I think it's good. You know, anybody that's going to be listening to this is going to reach that moment at some point. And honestly, I just ask for myself because I think about it all the time. Like this is so important to me. And it makes up so much of who I am that I know that day is eventually going to come. And I think it's good for all of us to hear from someone at the level that you were, that you struggled with it too. So
I know how much I struggled, there's a guy, I don't know if you guys can get him on or not, but I think you could. But I'm going to use him as an example. It's Dexter. I would like to know how Dexter mentally transitioned, because Dexter did it longer than any of us ever did.
Right.
Like, you know, and his issue was not injuries. It was just Father Time was finally catching his ass. But like with him, I'm actually curious to see like another guy, like what's his name? Jean-Pierre Fuchs, whatever it was. Because he had that drastic injury. It just kind of just ended his career out of nowhere. You know, like I kind of wonder like if they felt the same as I felt, or if, you know, how they mentally dealt with that stuff.
Well, like the gold standard for mental fortitude in bodybuilding was Dorian Yates, right? That's the guy. And he's talked about it where he basically had a couple of years where he went off the deep end. He was done with bodybuilding. So yeah, I think it's I appreciate the honesty there, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any bodybuilder, maybe Kevin Levrone, because, you know, Kevin was always just kind of teeter-totter. Kevin knows anytime he wants to get big again, Kevin's probably mid-50s. He can still get big right now if he wanted to. I feel like he could. But Kevin may be the only guy who I don't know if he actually ever struggled with it, because most of us stayed big all year round. Kevin was one of the guys who was big, little, and went back and forth. But, you know, anytime you've done this for like 15 years, I mean, I feel like, and I might be wrong because I don't follow a lot of other sports, but I could imagine, like, say, take a football player who's, you know, competed in the NFL, or played in the NFL, and let's say he's made it to the Super Bowl. And then out of nowhere, his team cuts him, or he has an injury, and everything that he knows is gone. Like that people don't understand from the outside looking in, like the fans of the sport, they don't get how that impacts you internally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think bodybuilding is different because it's so 24/7, 365. Every micro decision of every day affects bodybuilding, whereas sports players they can play the game and then go to the club. Like,
correct.
I took a lift with an O lineman back in the 90s. He had 5 Super Bowl rings and he was driving me to the airport. And I'm like, yo, dude, you're an offensive lineman. You played with Tony Mandarich. Like, you're driving for Lyft. And he didn't even want to talk about it. He's like, I don't want to remember being an NFL lineman. I was like, I can't relate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming if he was that good, that he must have not, I hate to say this, but he must have not have managed his money very well if he's working for Lyft or Uber. Yeah. Because I can't imagine a guy like, I'm very good with money management. Like, I can't imagine having millions of dollars and then, unless he just genuinely enjoys driving like that. Some people they like human interaction. Just think about it. You're not going to get much better human interaction than being an Uber driver or a Lyft driver. Because 99% of the time when people get in the back of your car, they're going to be happy to see you. They're going to talk to you. Unless that's his thing, you know, I can't imagine that like he's happy with his life decisions.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some regrets, but it's just interesting to see that, like, there's a lot of pro athletes out in Scottsdale where I live, and you can see them at the grocery store, and they don't, you know, their pro career was almost just like a job for them, and then when it was over, they moved on.
Yeah, that's common. I think it's very common.
Bodybuilding is a lot because it's such an all-encompassing part of, like, it's your existence for a huge chunk of your life.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like you were saying earlier, you have to micromanage every minute of your day to be the best bodybuilder that you can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another point of that is it's a purpose. Like I've said this to friends or people outside of bodybuilding where they're like, man, how long are you going to do this? Or why do you keep doing this to yourself? And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck else I would do with myself. I wouldn't know how else to live, honestly, at this point. So it's, yeah, it all plays into that, like that identity or how you see yourself. Man, we're coming up on an hour and a half. I don't know how much longer.
But I want to ask one more question, and then let's maybe do this part 2, because I know Tommy had some questions that he wanted to ask. But since we're talking about time management, money management, and outside of bodybuilding, all those, you know, all that discipline and management and time management and money management, how has that made your life after bodybuilding prosper? Like, obviously you talked about day trading, and, you know, I know you're not flaunting or anything, but being able to buy $100,000 boat, I know. So you've made good money, you've made a name for yourself, and now you're getting to do the things that you enjoy that are expensive and take time and all those things. Just briefly touch on like how you've been able to make the money, save the money, invest the money, and have the things that you like now. Because most of us, when we start into bodybuilding, the only thing we see is, like, hell, for a lot of people nowadays, it's what you see on Instagram, buying the shoes, buying the clothes. Like, I saw what Jay did, and so, like, I never thought like, I'm gonna start bodybuilding to make all this money. I was just like, damn, Jay lives a fucking awesome life, and he's bodybuilding at the highest fucking level. I want that. And so, having to take a step back from bodybuilding for the last 3 years, I'm kind of in the same position where you are, where it's like, I've made a lot of money. Obviously, I haven't won pro bodybuilding shows, but I've made a lot of money. I've started to invest more money, and it's like, you have those days where it's like, all right, Turner, we're turning it back on. And it's like, you have a day where you can make $10,000 in a day. It's like, well, which one of these you really going to fucking do?
Yeah. Yeah. Unless bodybuilding itself, unless competitive bodybuilding is actually paying you, then you have to focus on, like, business and family have to come before that. You know, as much as I love bodybuilding, business and family have to come forward, because if, you know, you don't want to neglect your family. And then if you don't have any money, you can't be a bodybuilder in general, because this sport is not cheap. Like, there's literally, like, I would say the average bodybuilder's grocery bill is 300% a normal human being. And then gym fees is gym fees. That is what it is. Like, gear, I mean, I'm sure everybody here knows exactly how much that shit costs. That's not cheap. And the more you do, the more it costs. So then usually the bigger you get, the more it takes. So there's that too.
Right.
So you got to be able to manage your business and stuff. But I remember, I'm not the biggest fan of him as a person, but as a bodybuilder, I mean, I think we can all agree that Sean Ray was a pretty amazing bodybuilder. Sean called me in 2013, and he actually helped me get set up with Gear Nutra. He helped me set up on the first contract, and Sean was actually, he got screwed over as well out of all that. But Sean called me, and we had about an hour-long conversation. Now, this is not a conversation that Sean hasn't spoken about publicly, because he loves to talk about himself, right? But, you know, he was talking about how in the 80s, in the early 90s, how we didn't have internet, we didn't have Facebook, social media. He would basically write letters to supplement store owners, gym owners, promoters, and he was constantly trying to promote himself to get appearances in order to make money. So, you know, Sean made a very valid statement to me one time. He said, when he would guest pose for people, like, let's say you ask somebody $5,000 to guest pose, and they said, whoa, too much. Okay, well, let's negotiate. What can you do? What's your budget? He comes out and says $2,000. I'm like, hey man, I can't do $2,000. Let's eat in the middle. Let's do $3,500. You know, you negotiate that, because do you want to make $3,500 or do you want to make no dollars? Like, right. You get a chance to get on an airplane for free, stay in your hotel for free, make a couple $1,000s free. The fans love you. You meet a lot of great people. You have connections over the years. You have, like, lifelong. I've met a lot of my friends and stuff just guest posing. A lot of people I still stay in contact with doing that. So you get the opportunity to live this extravagant life and make money at the same time. So when he told me, you know, back then, I think Sean was making like $500 to $1,000, which, you know, this was the 90s. It's equivalent to like $5,000 today with inflation, $10,000, I don't know. But you get the idea. It's like, I'm going to make some money or I'm going to make no money. And all you have to do is pose for 10 minutes, and that's it. So I took that to heart. So when people wanted to offer me endorsements and contracts, I would always play the better deal, see what I could do. And, you know, when it come to guest posings, I never really turned them down. I turned down one guest posing. One. I turned down a couple, but that's because I was booked for something else. But, like, there was one guy, he offered me, he wanted to fly me to Hawaii to guest pose out there. And I thought, oh shit, you know, Hawaii, that's going to be great, right? And he told me, we didn't talk about money. And then he said, I'll give you some extra spending money while you're here. And I'm like, spending money? Like, I didn't like how he worded that. And I was like, well, yeah, we do need to talk about my fee, you know, to bring me out. And he goes, yeah, how much do you do? And I was like, well, how much are you willing to offer before I tell you how much I want? He goes, oh, I was going to give you like $300 or $400. I was like, $300 or $400? Like, dude, I don't even know if we need to be on the phone anymore. Like at $300, you're like, this was after I'd already done the Olympia too. It's like, you want an Olympian to come out to guest post for $300. Like, am I getting like clown? Is this a prank call or something? Like, what the fuck is this? But like, I turned that one down. I was like, I'm not interested for $300. But usually, you know, if you could talk to me and give me $1,000 to $1,500 minimum, and I never had a promoter want to go lower than that. So I took that money and I just, you know, I took it every chance I get, you know, store openings, whatever the case, you know, if I could see something that, like, if I can see value in something that I can buy and flip, I'll buy it and flip it. If I can buy it for $500 and sell it for $750, I'm going to do it 100%. I don't know if you know a guy. Remember, I know you do. Dan Decker. Remember Dan? Me and Dan had a conversation one time. This was a great conversation. We were actually eating breakfast the morning of the Golden State. And he was watching me. He's like, so this is what I got to take to look like you. And I said, Dan, I've never done this before in my life. I said, I wasn't even planning on doing this show. Everything I'm doing, I'm just fucking winging it right now. I was like, so don't do what I'm doing. Turns out it was the best I ever looked. I remember eating like biscuits and jelly, eggs, grits, like all kinds of shit that morning. But me and Dan was kind of talking about business, and what he kind of does that too. But like, for example, he told me he goes like yard sales and flea markets and stuff like that often because he knows antiques. Like, he's very good with that kind of stuff. I don't know jack shit about antiques. But he told me that he found this doll. I can't remember. He paid like $15 for it, flipped it on eBay for like $1,800. Well, because it was a very valuable item. So like, I think everyone's going to be different in how they make money, but you got to find a niche that works good for you. So for me, what I'm going to do, I'm hoping to do it this year too. Like, I've been saying it for about 4 months, and I actually have a place ready to go at the end of the year. Like, I have a place that's going to come up for rent. I actually don't. I don't do e-cigarettes. I don't vape. I don't do anything like that. I'll smoke other stuff from time to time, but I don't vape. Right. However, if it makes money, it makes sense. And there is so much money to be made in that industry. Because how often do you see people with a vape pen constantly hitting that in public? There's so much money to be made in that, and there's little overhead. I mean, if you got 50 grand, you can start your own. You can make it happen. So like, I'm constantly looking into that kind of stuff. Real estate's kind of took a shit, you know, like anything after 2020, you just kind of ignore it nowadays. So like, I don't look at real estate, but one thing I wanted to do, but I didn't have the capital for this. This takes a lot of money. You need 7-figure money for this. I was wanting to open a storage unit, like buy the property, clean the property, build the units, because you got no overhead, man. You have a electric bill and a water bill that's going to be virtually nothing. You pay 2 employees and you have a security system put in. And as long as you got those units filled, you're making, you could probably do 6 figures a month if you have it set up. But the problem is, it takes a lot of money to get that started.
Some of the wealthiest people I know own storage units and trailer parks.
If you own the trailer park, like the land, they're going to pay you rent just to park the trailer there.
Yeah, cash, and it's cash business. It's not all, but I mean, anyways, that's a whole nother podcast. And I could talk and talk and talk on. So I want to say thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for just, like I said, all your time, your knowledge. I've been a fan for as far back as I can remember. Let's try to do it again.
If you guys want to do a part 2 with it, you know, just let me know and we'll go from there. I am booked tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. I say I'm booked. I'm fishing is what I'm doing. I'm going to be out offshore, so there won't be any cell phone service there. But yeah, anytime, you know, if you want to do like part 2 next week or something, we can do that.
Do it.
Man, that's awesome, man. Yeah. Appreciate it so much. And
thanks for your time, Justin.
We'd love to have you back on.
All right, no worries, man.
So for Justin Compton, Turner Riddle, Tommy Styles at 4 Days Out, I'm Joseph PIRCHER. This was For the Love of the Game. And until next time, guys, we are out.